Welcome back to AF Tales. In today's story, we explore a girlfriend who mocked a man's mother as the help, then revealed she was dating him as a class experiment. As you listen, notice the moment where you would have walked away. My girlfriend said, "You are nobody, Garrett." I replied, "We will see." Then I recorded her, walked away calmly, warned my mom, called the vendors, and watched as one coffee shop conversation started ending her perfect reputation. She sneered, "You're such a mama's boy. Maybe a pretty dress would suit you better." It happened at a Beacon Hill Christmas party, in a room full of people who smiled like they were watching a show. And in that moment, I realized something simple. This wasn't a joke that landed badly. This was who she was when she thought she had the power. My name is Garrett. I'm 30, a licensed electrician, and I own a small business in Boston. I've been with my girlfriend Sloane, 28, for about 18 months. She's from an old money Beacon Hill family. She calls herself a social media entrepreneur, which mostly means she posts lifestyle content funded by a trust fund. Before I get into what happened, you need to understand where I come from. I grew up poor in Southie. My mom, Rosa, worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat after my dad left when I was 8. She cleaned houses, she worked at a diner, she did whatever it took. But she also had this dream of starting her own catering business. It took her 15 years, but she did it. She started small church events, birthdays, any job she could get. She reinvested every penny. She learned the business inside and out. Now Rosa's catering handles some of the biggest events in Boston. High-end weddings, corporate functions, charity galas. She employs 12 people and owns the building where her kitchen is. I'm proud of her in a way that's hard to explain if you haven't watched someone build a life brick by brick. When she expanded, I did electrical work for free. I helped drive deliveries on weekends, whatever she needed. But it was her vision, her work, her success. Sloane always seemed a little uncomfortable when I talked about my family. She'd make small comments about how different our backgrounds were, how grounded I was compared to her friends. I thought she meant it as a compliment. Looking back, those were not compliments, they were labels. Last Saturday was the Whitfields' annual Christmas party. Big deal in their social circle. Beacon Hill Mansion, old money families. The kind of event where people act polite while ranking each other in their head. Sloane had been talking about it for weeks, dropping hints about what I should wear, who I'd be meeting, how I should carry myself. Here's the twist. Rosa's catering had been hired to handle the event. Pure coincidence. The Whitfields booked through an event planner who contracts with my mom regularly. My mom didn't even know I'd be there as a guest. I was honestly excited. I thought it would be cool for Sloane to see my mom's work up close. To understand why I'm so proud, the party was exactly what you'd expect. Beautiful house, expensive decorations, people wearing outfits that cost more than most people make in a month. And through it all, my mom's team ran the whole thing like a machine. The food was incredible. The service was smooth. Everything felt effortless because the people working were actually good at what they do. About an hour in, I was talking with some of Sloane's friends when I saw my mom come out to check the buffet setup. She was in her professional catering uniform, directing staff, making sure everything was perfect. One of Sloane's friends, Madison, noticed me watching and asked, "Do you know her?" Before I could answer, Sloane jumped in with a laugh. "Oh, that's just Garrett's mom. She's like the glorified housekeeper for tonight." Everyone laughed. And I felt my face heat up, not because I was embarrassed of my mom, but because I suddenly understood Sloane wanted me to be embarrassed. I said calmly, "Actually, she owns the catering company. Rosa's Catering. This is her business." Sloane rolled her eyes. "Same difference. Really, she's still just the help." That's when something in me snapped, not the loud kind, the clear kind. I spoke loud enough for the group to hear. That woman built a successful business from nothing. She employs people, owns property, and earns every dollar through hard work. There is nothing just the help about her. Sloane's face went red. She grabbed my arm and hissed, "You're embarrassing me." I looked at her and said, "You embarrassed yourself by disrespecting my mother." Then she said it, loud enough for half the party to hear. "You are such a mama's boy. Maybe a pretty dress would suit you better since you act more like a daughter than a son." The group went quiet. I could feel eyes on me. Some people looked uncomfortable. Others looked entertained, like this was the most interesting thing that happened all night. And this is where I knew exactly what kind of person Sloane was. Not because she insulted me, because she did it to punish me for defending someone she thought was beneath her. I looked right at her and said, "Defending my family's honor isn't weakness, it's what real men do. Maybe you'd understand that if you knew anything about real work or real loyalty." Then I walked over to my mom. I told her the food was incredible like it always is, and I left. Sloane blew up my phone all weekend. She said I made a scene. She said I humiliated her in front of important people. She kept insisting she was joking and I took it too seriously, but it didn't feel like a joke. It felt like a test, like she wanted to see if I would pick my pride over my mother. And here's the thing. If someone can't respect the person who raised you, they don't respect you either. They're just waiting for you to forget where you came from. At first, I still questioned myself. 18 months is a long time. Things had been mostly good. I wondered if I should have handled it privately. Then Wednesday night, I drove to her place to talk. I honestly thought maybe she'd realize how hurtful it was and we'd move forward. I told her, "I want to understand why you felt the need to downplay my mom's business in front of your friends." Her immediate response was, "Because you made me look bad, Garrett. You turned a light-hearted comment into huge drama in front of everyone who matters in this city." Everyone who matters. I just stared at her. Then she said, like it was obvious, "They respect your mom's work. They respect her service, not her as a person. There's a difference." That line landed like a punch because it wasn't emotional, it was practical, like she'd been taught this and never questioned it. I said, "So in your mind, my mom deserves less respect because she works for her money instead of inheriting it." She waved it off. "Don't twist my words. I'm saying you need to understand social dynamics better. When you're in certain circles, you don't go around bragging about your family's work situations. Work situations, like owning a successful business, was something you whisper about." Then she doubled down. "And the way you spoke to me in front of my friends was completely inappropriate. You humiliated me. You owe me an apology." I said, "I owe you an apology. You called my mother the help and told me I should wear a dress." She sighed like I was exhausting. I was joking. "God, you're so sensitive about everything related to your family. It's honestly exhausting." That's when I realized this conversation was never going to end with understanding. She genuinely believed she did nothing wrong, and my feelings were the problem. After I left her place, I started thinking about whether this was a pattern I'd been ignoring. So I called my buddy Tommy from work. He'd hung out with us a few times. I asked him straight up, "Has Sloane ever said anything weird about my background when I wasn't around?" There was a long pause. Then he said, "Garrett, maybe we should talk in person." We met Thursday night for beers, and what he told me made my stomach drop. Apparently last month, at a bar in the North End, when I went to the bathroom, Sloane told the group she was doing charity work by dating me. Like she was trying to elevate someone from a lower social class. Like it was a social experiment. Tommy said he didn't know how to tell me at the time, but after the Christmas party, he felt like I needed to know. He said, "She talks about you like you're her project man, like she's doing you this huge favor by being with you." And it got worse. Tommy's girlfriend, Sarah, heard Sloane say, "The problem with dating down is they never really learn to fit in. Garrett tries, but you can always tell where he came from." Dating down. I sat there with my beer in my hand, hearing those words, and suddenly every small comment from the last 18 months rearranged itself in my head. How she'd fix my clothes before we went out. How she'd change the subject when I talked about work projects I was proud of. How she'd joke about my working-class charm in front of her friends. I thought she was teasing. Turns out she was keeping score. The worst part was my mom knew. Rosa heard the dress comment at the party, and apparently she'd been getting weird vibes from Sloane for months, but never said anything because she didn't want to interfere. When I went to see her, she told me, "That girl doesn't see you as good enough for her, Mijo, but you are good enough for anyone. Don't let someone else's insecurity make you forget that." Watching my mom say that calmly with hurt in her eyes did something to me. It wasn't rage, it was clarity. I was supposed to see Sloane that weekend. Part of me wanted to confront her about what Tommy told me. Another part of me thought I already knew everything I needed to know. Then Friday afternoon, Danny called me while I was finishing a job in Cambridge. "You need to get down to that coffee shop on Newberry Street right now," he said. I told him, "I've got 3 more outlets to install," he said. "Trust me, just get down here." Danny never sounds that serious, so I packed up and went. He was sitting outside thinking cup, looking pissed. He pointed through the window. "She's in there," he said, "with 3 of her friends, and they're talking about you." I looked in and saw Sloane at a corner table with Madison and 2 other Beacon Hill types I recognized from parties. They were laughing like they were having the best afternoon. Danny told me he'd been in line for coffee and heard my name, so he listened. We found a table close enough to hear without being obvious. It took maybe 30 seconds before Sloane's voice cut through clearly. "The charity case thing is getting old," she said. "Honestly, like I've done my good deed, tried to elevate someone from the working class, but there's only so much you can polish, you know." One of her friends laughed. "So you're finally going to dump the electrician." Sloane said, "I mean, it's been fun slumming it for a while. The sex is decent. Working class guys definitely have that going for them, but I think I've gotten everything useful out of this experiment." Experiment. She called our relationship an experiment, like I was a before and after photo. Madison asked, "What about the mom situation?" "Wasn't she catering your family's party?" Sloane groaned. "Oh God, that was so embarrassing. Garrett got all defensive about his little mommy's business. Started acting like she's some kind of mogul instead of just fancy hired help. I had to put him in his place. Put me in my place, like I was a dog that needed training." Then she said the line that made my blood go cold. "The funniest part is how proud they are of that little catering business. Like, sweetie, you cook food for your betters and clean up after real parties. That's not entrepreneurship. That's just service work with delusions of grandeur." Danny put his hand on my arm because he could see my face. "Easy," he said. "Not here." Another friend asked, "Are you going to keep using them for events, though? The food was actually really good." Sloane said, "Hell no. I'm going to make sure everyone knows they're not our kind of people, can't have the help getting ideas above their station." Above their station. That's when I understood this wasn't only about our relationship ending. She was planning to sabotage my mom's business because I embarrassed her pride. Sloane continued, "The thing about these working-class families is they never really understand their place. They think because they make some money, they're suddenly equal to people with real breeding and education. It's kind of pathetic. Real breeding." Hearing a grown woman talk like that in 2025 with a straight face was almost surreal. Madison asked, "So what's your exit strategy?" Sloane said, "I'll drag it out another month or 2, then find some reason to break up. Maybe I'll say he's not ambitious enough, something that makes it sound like it's his fault for not being good enough." They all laughed. Danny and I left before I did something stupid. I drove around for an hour, just trying to process the fact that someone could smile in your face for 18 months while talking about you like you're a hobby. When I got home, I called my mom and told her everything. The comments, the threat to badmouth her business. Rosa was quiet for a long moment, then she said, "Mijo, I've been in business 20 years. I've dealt with people like her before. They think money makes them better. But they always underestimate what working people are capable of." Then she said something that hit even harder. "You need to decide what you're going to do about this girl, because this isn't just about her disrespecting me anymore. This is about her disrespecting you." She was right. This wasn't about class wars. It wasn't even about pride. It was about someone who lied to my face for 18 months and saw me as entertainment. I knew what I needed to do. I just needed to do it in a way that protected my mom, too. So the next Friday, I called Sloane and asked if I could come over to talk. I told her I'd been thinking about the Christmas party and wanted to clear the air. She sounded pleased, like she thought I was finally coming to apologize. Before I knocked on her door, I set my phone to record. Inside, I started calmly. I've been thinking about what you said at the party and I wanted to understand where it came from. She went straight into damage control. Garrett, I already explained. I was joking. You really need to learn to take things less seriously, I said. Help me understand what made you think calling my mom glorified help would be funny. She shrugged. Because it's just not that big a deal. She was working at the party. I made a little comment. Normal people would have laughed it off. Normal people like who? I asked. People who understand social dynamics, she said. People who don't make mountains out of molehills. I kept my voice even. Explain the social dynamics. What's the difference between my mom and your friends? And that's where the mask started slipping. She said, Garrett, come on. There are just different classes of people. It doesn't mean one is better than the other, but there are natural hierarchies, I asked. And where do I fit in these hierarchies? Long pause. You're different, she said. You've worked hard to elevate yourself. Elevate myself from what? I asked. Another pause. She was getting irritated now. From where you started, she said. Which was what exactly? I pressed. She exhaled like I was forcing her to say something impolite. Look, you came from a working-class background. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just different from how I was raised. Different how? I asked. What values did I learn that are wrong? That's when she snapped. You want me to spell it out? Fine. You people think working hard makes you special. You think because you make money, you deserve the same respect as people who were actually born to matter. Born to matter. I stopped the recording and held my phone up where she could see it. She frowned. Why do you have your phone out? I said. Because I wanted your real thoughts on record. Just like I recorded what you said at Thinking Cup last week about slumming it with me, calling our relationship an experiment and saying you were going to sabotage my mom's business. Her face went white. You were spying on me, she said. I was having coffee nearby, I said. And I heard you explain exactly who you are for about 10 seconds. She stared at me and then something shifted, like she decided she didn't need to pretend anymore. You want to know what I really think, she said. Fine. You're a blue-collar loser who got lucky enough to date someone out of his league. I tried to help you become something better, but you can't change breeding. You'll always be working class. Nobody who thinks he deserves more than he's worth. Then she dragged my mom again. And your precious mommy runs a catering business. She cooks food and cleans up after her betters. That's not building an empire. That's just being the help with a business license. I stood up. I said, well, at least now I know exactly what you think of me and my family. She followed me to the door, still talking. You think you're going to do something with those recordings. No one in my circle will care what some electrician thinks. You're nobody, Garrett. You'll always be nobody. I looked at her and said, we'll see about that. Then I left. Outside, I called my mom and played her the recording. Rosa listened quietly. When it ended, she said, Mijo, this girl has no idea what she just did. Turns out my mom has been building alliances in Boston's business community for 20 years. Not with trust fund kids, with event planners, vendors, other entrepreneurs, people who actually show up and do the work. She also had connections I didn't even know about, including with the Martinez family, who have their own old money drama with the Whitfields going back decades. When my mom told Elena Martinez about Sloane's comments, including Born to Matter, Elena was very interested, especially when she heard the recordings. The Martinez family ended up booking Rosa's catering solid through next December. High-profile events, corporate functions, charity galas, the kind of contracts that change a business. And Elena started recommending my mom to other families in their circle, people with even older money than the Whitfields, who apparently care more about quality work than inherited status. Meanwhile, word spread through Boston's working community too. Other electricians and small business owners reached out. People don't like seeing someone attack a working family like it's a sport. My business picked up fast. Turns out a lot of people prefer to hire someone who earned their success. As for Sloane, the last I heard, she was having trouble finding caterers for her next event. The event world is smaller than people think, and reputations travel, especially when you treat service workers like props. I'm not focused on revenge. I'm focused on protecting what my mom built and building more of my own. I'm helping Rosa expand. I'm taking bigger contracts. I'm remembering something I should have never forgotten. Real worth comes from what you build, not what you inherit. And yes, those recordings are stored safely. Not because I want to ruin her life. Because when someone threatens your family's livelihood out of spite, you don't leave yourself defenseless. The weird part is, after all this, I don't feel like I dated up and fell down. I feel like I dated someone who thought she was above me, and I finally remembered I was already exactly where I belonged. Lesson 1: if someone disrespects your family, they are testing how much of yourself they can make you abandon. Lesson 2: jokes that only punch down are not jokes. They're a glimpse of real beliefs. Lesson 3: a partner who sees you as a project will never treat you as an equal. The moment you stop being useful, they start planning your exit. Lesson 4: protect your people. Love isn't just feelings, it's loyalty in public and private. Lesson 5: reputation and relationships built through real work are stronger than status built through inherited money. What would you have done if you heard your partner calling you an experiment in public? Would you confront them on the spot, or gather proof and end it clean? And if someone threatened your family's business out of spite, would you expose them, or quietly protect your own and move on?